In rolling out new advice for healthy diets, the World Health Organization last month warned against using artificial sweeteners. Not only does the WHO say that artificial sweeteners don't do any good for weight loss for most people, but the organization also warned they may even do harm. With us on how to sort out the hype from the science, let's welcome Mark Schatzker. He is the author most recently of The End of Craving, Recovering the Lost Wisdom of Eating Well. And Leanne De Souza-Kenney, Assistant Professor of Global and Public Health at the University of Toronto and the founder of Nutrition and Food Literacy Canada. And it's good to have you two back in our studio. Nice to see you again.
Thank you for having us.
Okay, so here's what the WHO is saying, that not only is this stuff maybe not doing you any good, but it could pose some health risks. And, you know, we got to fact check all these things, right? So, Mark, start us off. How concerned should we be?
I would say concerned insofar as, diet, obesity, metabolic disease is a very serious health problem. And if we have some idea as to what's causing that, we should take it seriously. So we should think about what we eat.
Leanne, what do you say?
Yeah, I think it's great that the World Health Organization put this out, because what it does is give us a chance to call to mind why we make the decisions we make, why we make the food choices we do. Where do we see artificial sweeteners in our environment that we're passively consuming versus those that we're actively making a choice? Because we're not really that concerned about the one-off time you might have a diet soda at an occasion. We're talking about the consistent consumption. It's in your snacks, it's in your coffee that you may have multiple times per day. So it gives us cause to pause and think about what's in our food systems and our food environments.
Cause to pause, but are you going so far as to say we should actively try not to ingest any of this stuff anymore?
I think there's good reason to go back to basics and start to have foods that are your whole foods, and to think about the practices of why we're consuming, dig a little deeper on why are we consuming those foods? What is it that we're trying to achieve? Weight loss has been, one of the things that people have really moved towards artificial sweeteners for, but as you said, there's no real evidence to suggest that it's beneficial, and the risks may outweigh the benefits.
Mark, do you want to talk to us about the difference between natural and artificial sugars and what they do to us?
Yeah, it gets very technical and complicated. Generally, when people talk about artificial sweeteners, they're talking about sweetening agents that deliver sweetness with fewer calories. So for the public, that would be things like aspartame, NutraSweet, but also things like the sugar alcohols that have technical names like xylitol. They're kind of organic compounds that have some calories, but at a higher level of sweetness than sugar. Scientists get into talking about non-nutritive sweeteners, low energy sweeteners. It gets very complicated, but it's essentially trying to deliver sweetness with fewer calories. The idea being, I can give you all the pleasure of sweetness, but I can pull back the calories. So it's a win. You get to enjoy your food, but you don't get the negative hit of calories. So on the superficial, simple level, it sounds like a great idea. But the question is, of course, is it actually doing what we think, or is it doing harm?
And I'll ask you the same question. Are you at the point yet where you are saying we should actively avoid these things?
Well, I would put it this way. Why should we eat them? These are not natural substances. So I would say the case has to be made, not should we avoid them, but why should we consume these things? It's like if it's something like a drug, we don't say, give me a reason not to take it. We say, give me a reason to take it. So I would say that's the standard that we should be looking at.
I'm going to play along. You say, why should we take these things? Because we've been hit over the head for ages that sugar, like real sugar, stuff you put in your coffee and tea, is terrible for you. And so we're looking for an alternative that gives us the same kind of hit. So you're saying, why should we take that? That's why we take it.
Yes, so, okay, good point. But then when you look at the science, if you look at, let's call the positive evidence, it's not all that compelling. People lose a pound, maybe 2 pounds. It's not, the kind of dramatic weight loss that people are looking for. And then when you look at the negative stuff, it looks more scary. So it just doesn't seem all that compelling to me.
All right. Artificial sweeteners like stevia, often marketed as healthier, skinnier replacement in snacks and drinks. It's in Diet Coke, I guess, that kind of thing. What's the connection between healthy eating trends and the diet culture, which we are immersed in?
Well, the diet culture and the healthy eating trends feed each other, pun intended. And what ends up happening is that with diet culture, we end up having people really assigning value and moral judgment to the way we eat, the way we look, what we value in society, what we uphold as good or attractive. And this has huge consequences, not just for adults, but for children too. It perpetuates an environment that has people thinking about food in the wrong way and thinking about food as a tool to wield a certain body type or wield a certain image, instead of thinking about what it really means to eat healthy and getting back to the idea of joy in food.
Joy in food,
Absolutely.
as in?
As in taking the time to eat together as a family, the days people use recipes and thought about the ingredients that go into their food, comparing recipes and thinking about what kinds of meals we're going to share together, those meals that are of our ancestors, coming back to that experience, I think is really important.
Do people have time for that anymore?
I think they should. One of the most interesting statistics I ever came across was that when you look at Italy and France, they consume far fewer calories than Americans do, and yet it takes them something like double the time to eat. So their approach to food is obviously very different. So yeah, I would say if we don't have the time, we should find the time.
That's a cultural thing, though, right? I mean, they've kind of got it built into their lives that dinner is going to take a particular amount of time, and they're going to have it at a particular time of the day, and it's almost like a daily festival. Whereas our thing seems to be, let's just get it done fast because we got to get on to the next thing.
Yes.
They're right, we're wrong.
Exactly. The interesting thing is that we seem to regard food, we look at it kind of pharmacologically. We think about nutrients, protein, calories, vitamins, and what happens when all these molecules get into our stomach and get metabolized. It's kind of everything from the neck down. It doesn't work. Even the scientists that study this for a living have no idea how many calories they consume in a day or how much protein they consumed, how much they need. When you look at Europeans, I think Italy's the best example. They approach food with the point of view, they revere the products of the earth and the sea, and they approach each meal with the intent to enjoy the company. The meal is nourishing both physiologically, but also psychologically. And I think it's so hard for us to grasp that because we've been fighting this war on food and thinking, well, we can invent these miracle molecules that are just going to be this simple silver bullet fix. And I think we have a lot more to learn from them.
What you're talking about is a massive cultural shift in the way we think about all this.
Absolutely.
I mean, they've been doing it that way for hundreds of years. Yeah. Whereas we seem to love anyway, do it fast, let's get on to the next thing. How do you imagine us sort of changing our whole approach to a healthier approach to eating?
Yes, we definitely have engineered our lives around how do we get it out of the way so we could get on to the things that we really want to do. And I think that's going to be a huge question for us as Canadians as we go into the future and think about what do we want for ourselves, what do we want for our nation, for future generations of Canadians, what do we hope for us? Do we want to shift a culture? And this is going to involve some sort of mass movement where we engage people, invite them in partnership, not sort of one group telling another group what to do, but to come together and make some of these decisions, grapple with the hard science, grapple with the knowledge translation of the science to figure out how do we do this. And one of the projects that I'm working on with Nutrition and Food Literacy Canada, which I recently started, is to bring together Canadians from across Canada, different sectors, to talk about how do we bring nutrition and food literacy into the education system. Right now, we don't have a robust curriculum in nutrition or food. It's kind of tethered to a health curriculum or gym class, but we don't actually interweave it through kindergarten to grade 12, and we don't have teachers that are informed on it. And then necessarily so that teachers will avoid it because they have way too much to do and they don't have the training in it. But if we go to the level of Teachers College, we may be able to educate teachers in Teachers College and students K to 12 through curriculum so that in time you have teachers and students, by extension their families and communities, being able to talk about these topics, not shy away from them, grapple with the things that are sort of unknown, those so-called wicked problems, and really talk about how we figure out nutrition and food literacy in this country.
And I think also it's really about the enjoyment of food. Yeah. One thing I'm concerned about in school is it's very much calorie oriented, and they get a lot of young girls very worried about what they eat. They have this idea that, fat is toxic. They can't eat any carbs, any sugar. And they have this idea the only foods that are healthy is like a sliced grapefruit, grapes, half an avocado. And this is not a sustainable diet. It's interesting when you look in Japan that they teach children how to eat, how to enjoy food, how do we think about food. And we're so far away from that. I think one of the big mistakes was getting rid of home ec, getting rid of teaching kids how to cook. The thinking is, because we're teaching the girls, well, we should teach the boys too. I can't, people graduate from high school not knowing how to cook and not knowing what credit card debt is. And those are two things that get you into an awful lot of trouble.
Isn't that incredible? That is true. We need to, these are two skills that will be so important to you for the rest of your life. And these are things that are very much lowballed by the education system right now. How do we turn that around?
It's a great question. It's cultural, and it seems like turning around an aircraft carrier. And there's certainly no simple answer. There's certain things I look to, though, that I think are positive. I always think the movement to craft beer, it sounds odd, but it's really positive in the sense that people are becoming so much more attached to beer that has a tradition behind it, where they might have an idea of who made it or what the ingredients were. We see things like that with cheese that we're getting, we want Kraft cheeses. So we're slowly, it's not across the board, but I think there is positive evidence that people, farmers markets is another good example. So I think there can be change. It just has to take place, in a lot of different ways.
It takes a long time to turn that aircraft
It really
carrier
does.
around. I want to pick up on your notion of we got to start them young, right? To
Yes.
get kids understanding this. And you've written, I gather, a children's book called Nutritious and Delicious, A Fruitful Conversation for Kids. What kind of impact do you hope that has?
Well, I think it's a conversation starter, and that's why it's called Fruitful Conversation, because it gets kids and families to start talking about it. Some of people who've read the book already say, my kid reads it one week, and the next week they have a different idea because we headed to a farmer's market, or they had a conversation somewhere about it, or they went to the grocery store. So getting kids involved in this process is so important. Even when we look at nutrition and food literacy as a whole, and the concept of literacy, meaning have agency over decision-making and over the knowledge that you learn, not just to learn it, but to also apply it. There's so many opportunities to bring those other pieces in that are, again, hearkening back to the time we used to have home ec. And now we know better too, though. So we know we don't need to have a whole kitchen in a school to be able to do this. And not all our students have access to a kitchen. So it's important to make it accessible. But you can tether in financial literacy, climate change, lots of different topics around this. But kids being a part of that conversation is really important.
I hear you, and Mark, I want you, if you want to push back on this idea, if you think it's appropriate, only in as much as we are asking the school system to do a lot these days. And never mind credit card debt, and never mind all the other things that, it's maths, it's Englishes, it's the basics, it's civics, it's literacy, it's, there's no end to what we want the school system to do these days. Do we have the capability of also introducing into the school system the notion that that's where people are going to learn how to be aware of nutrition going forward?
It's a good question, and I think you have to ask the question, how important is it? And I think many people would agree it's very important. Mm-hmm. Being able to feed yourself, being able to feed your family, being able to have the knowledge of how to prepare healthy food is very important. So I think we have the room. I have 3 kids in high school, and I won't name the courses, but I think there are some bird courses we could do away with and replace with.
Well, go ahead, name names.
Well, my son's doing a course, I can't remember what it's called, it has to do with organization or something, organization learning, and I don't feel he's learned how to organize the way I expected. And I think something like teaching him how to cook, teaching him skills, doing it with friends, doing it with kids his own age, would really be a benefit to him.
Now, when you say teaching him how to cook, you don't mean putting something in the microwave oven and waiting 2.5 minutes.
No, I mean learning how to chop an onion, learning how to chop vegetables, learning how to cook meat, if meat is something you want to cook. Knowing how to make a meal from scratch. Kids get to university, they have no idea what to do.
You've got 4 kids.
Yes, that's right.
Between what ages?
3 and 10.
Okay, the 3-year-old, I'm not holding out much hope yet about cooking his or her own meal. But the 10-year-old, I'm guessing, can be a helper in the kitchen at this stage of the game?
Absolutely. And you know what? The 10-year-old has been helping since he was 3. I think we need to step up the 3-year-old's game a little bit because the other 2 help as well. And in fact, my eldest discovered, the 10-year-old, that he's a little late to the party on learning to fry an egg because some of his friends have been doing it since 6. So he's starting to fry the eggs and just scrambled because they sort of start off that way when he begins. And I think that that's really important to have these conversations. And in terms of your question about teachers being overburdened, I absolutely agree. And this is why it's about shifting a culture going upstream to teachers' colleges. Not that in-service teachers couldn't learn this too, but you're going to teach economics. You're going to teach about history. You're going to teach about the environment. You could bring in those concepts into those examples. You're teaching geography. You can talk about food landscapes and food deserts. What are they? What do we need to be thinking about as a society? So social justice making its way into curriculum is not a should we. It's why haven't we started it yet?
It's also a great way of introducing different cultures in Canada. There's such an enthusiasm, all the websites there are for finding these great little spots in Scarborough and Mississauga to get great food. Well, we can bring that enthusiasm into the schoolroom. I think kids would love that.
I wonder how it works in your home, because there's it's a definite habit where the kids come home from school and they do their own thing. And frankly, in a lot of cases, the parents don't want their kids in the kitchen getting in the way. They need a break from the kids. They want the kids out of the kitchen. They want to be responsible for putting the meal. And if the kids want to clean up after, that's another thing. But you're not learning any culinary skills that way. How does it work in your place?
So I think of it 2 ways. The first is just modeling good behavior. I think if my wife and I put an honest, good meal on the table every night, that will filter into their brain in some way. But the other way is teach them, if you want to eat something delicious, if you figure out how to make it yourself, you can get what you want and you can do it yourself.
Does that work?
It worked for me, and I see it working with my kids. I see they're starting to learn to cook dishes that they want to make. And the challenge is there's so many processed foods they can bring home from the supermarket and pull it to the freezer and microwave, which is an easy fix. So the challenge is to get them to actually make it themselves from ingredients. But it comes,
Okay, let me ask you about, there's gosh, I don't know anything about this stuff. Is it the keto diet? Is that how you pronounce it?
Yes.
Keto diet.
Ketogenic.
Okay. Intermittent fasting, I've heard of that one. Okay. They're gaining a lot of popularity now as people, there's public figures, there's celebrities, they endorse all these things all the time. Can you talk to us about the influence, Mark, that pop culture, social media, all of that stuff has on our understanding of what constitutes healthy eating today?
Yeah, I would say it's just we're on this repetitive loop. It's like we're on a treadmill, that there just seems to be a trend every 2 years or so, something new comes in and it's the silver bullet. This is what went wrong with your body. This is why society's stacked against you. And this is why this one miracle thing is going to fix everything. And if you go back looking, as far back as the 60s, it's always been these trends. When you look back, you can see this pattern, and the ridiculousness makes itself visible. The problem is nutrition, health. It's just not simple. And the idea that there's this one silver bullet fix, it sounds great. It almost has a religious appeal. It just doesn't work.
How do you distinguish between, or how should we distinguish between facts, empirically provable facts, and fads that your latest favorite celebrity is pitching on social media?
I think we have to think about where we're getting our knowledge. So I don't want to slam social media because I think that it's an entertainment outlet, and if you're using it for entertainment, it can be quite entertaining. In fact, maybe it even makes you think about something, or you've heard of a term that you hadn't heard before and you might Google it. So there's some merits to it. But where we get information about how we put food into our bodies multiple times a day, I think we have to take that a lot more seriously and fact check and have that proactive desire to fact check. Whether that's talking to your physician, and if you don't have access to physician, community dietitians, community centers, there's lots of places, the library, there's lots of places we can access information. It's not enough. It's not as accessible as it should be. But so finding our sole information from social media and allowing that to drive the trends that we bring into our homes, into our families, into the generations after us is sort of a risky business.
Let me read a quote here. This is a Harvard primatologist, Richard Wrangham, who argues that the biggest revolution in the human diet came when we learned how to cook. And his research shows, this is interesting, mice raised on cooked foods gain 15 to 40% more weight than mice raised only on raw food. And here is his analysis. We have gotten so good at processing foods that for the first time in human evolution, many humans are getting more calories than they burn in a day. It's this shift to processed foods taking place all over the world that's contributing to a rising epidemic of obesity and related diseases. If most of the world ate more local fruits and vegetables, a little meat, fish, and some whole grains, as in the highly touted Mediterranean diet, and exercised an hour a day, that would be good news for our health and for the planet. Okay, explain that. How would that be good news for our health and the planet?
Well, I think the idea is that it'll be less environmentally destructive in terms of raising those foods versus all the energy that has to be used into processing foods. As far as the health goes, that's the idea that the Mediterranean diet is a healthier diet. And I think there's a lot of research that would suggest that it is. However, I'd also say if you go back in time 30, 40, 50 years ago, Canadians were trimmer. They were not eating a Mediterranean diet. So I don't think the conclusion has to be the Mediterranean diet. It's interesting, if you look at Italy, Northern Italians eat a less Mediterranean diet than Southerners, less fish, less olive oil, more cheese, more pork, and yet they are thinner. So I don't think it's necessarily, the danger is that people think, well, to eat healthily, I have to eat foods I don't like. I do like a lot of those foods, but some people don't. To me, it's just eat real food, keep the processed stuff out, and eat, the stuff you buy at the supermarket, produce, fruits, vegetables,
right,
whole cuts of meat.
If it's Northern versus Southern Italians, there could be a link between, say, poverty and poor nutrition, because the North is richer in Italy than the South. How do class and financial stability, in your view, Leanne, factor into this conversation?
Well, if we look at the research, almost everywhere where you have urban centers or you have low-income groups, even in rural settings, when you have lower-income groups, usually these are from the BIPOC community, Black, Indigenous, people of color, you end up having what's called food deserts, where there's not a lot of food options, there's no grocery retailers, or there's a lot of access to fast food, and that perpetuates an environment where it's historically called obesogenic. I think we're trying to move away from that term, obese, but the idea is that it promotes metabolic consequences down the road. And so that has a lot to do with social structure as well. And what we're talking about there is social determinants of health, the places that you work, live, grow, and age. What are those systems like? What's that environment like? Is it safe to go to the park and engage in physical activity? We can recommend physical activity all we want, but if people can't get outside safely to engage in physical activity, then how do they do that?
I think also a good point on that is this is the importance of teaching people how to cook, because there's this myth that processed food is cheaper than whole foods. I don't think that's true. If I take my kids to McDonald's or fast food restaurant, I got 3 kids, for the 5 of us to eat, that's, you're looking at a lot of money. If I take that money and go and buy actual food, I can actually afford to buy a nice bottle of wine.
Really? Even with the cost of produce nowadays and what inflation's done and all that?
Yeah, 'cause it depends what you're buying. If you look at things like if you buy lentils or chickpeas, you have a small, a braised cut of meat or something and make a stew out of that. It's really delicious. It's very economical.
I'm going to pull something right out of left field here, which is we've talked a lot on this program about a bunch of issues related to the healthcare system, overutilization of emergency departments, a doctor shortage here in the province, long wait times for some medical services. If we ate better, if we put more nutritious things into our bodies, go ahead, Leanne, start on this. Is there any reason to believe those other problems could get solved?
Absolutely. Hippocrates said, "Let food be thy medicine." And in fact, the Hippocratic oath that our physicians take is based on that and on Hippocrates. And so there's a lot of truth to that, getting back to the upstream. See, when we think about prevention, we think about 3 types: primary, secondary, and tertiary. And when we're talking about primary prevention, we're talking about before people even get sick in any kind of sickness, what are we doing to prevent that? And our medical system just isn't equipped to do that, largely because it's not in the education. It's not in the education system of our physicians. That's true in Canada, and it's true in other places in the world too. So we have to move back to the basics and back to the idea that Hippocrates had, let food be thy medicine, and have our physicians starting to be trained in this. And they can't bear it alone because, as you've pointed out, the medical system is stretched at baseline. So this is going to take time. It's like you steering that aircraft that you mentioned, but it's worth the investment and the time to do it.
In our last 30 seconds, Mark, I hate to break the news to you. Processed food probably is not going anywhere, and our lives are such that we are probably going to continue to go that way. So what advice do you want to leave people with here?
I would say eat as the Japanese and the Italians do, which is to say it's not just about eating real food, it's about approaching every meal as an opportunity for joy. Because the more you enjoy that food, the less the processed food is appealing, and it's easier to push it out of your life.
I get a lot of joy eating at McDonald's. I shouldn't, though, should I?
I think you can get even more joy
Agreed.
eating a great pasta.
We're going to work on that going forward. Mark Schatzker, Leanne De Souza-Kenney, thanks so much for coming into TVO tonight.
Thank you for having us.
The Agenda with Steve Paikin is made possible through generous philanthropic contributions from viewers like you. Thank you for supporting TVO's journalism.